My name is Katherine Bradford. A lot of people call me Kathy, and we're talking in my summer studio, which is in Brunswick, Maine, in a big mill building. This is my painting table. I'm using all acrylic paint, and the only thing I add to it is water, which I keep in these pitchers. And I like to use kind of hefty brushes, big brushes that I get at the hardware store. I can make a whole leg just by going like this, one stroke. And I keep these in water, but they get old and dry up. So I hang it up, it becomes its own art piece there. My paint pots, phthalo blue, or I put a color on the top, a red, or more fluorescent red, or orange. It's all here. And sometimes I feel like I'm playing an organ, and if I get just the right notes, I can make a song. I'm very grateful that I can experience a survey of my past work. It's really pretty extraordinary. I was a total long shot as far as developing as an artist of any note at all. This painting, Woman Flying, is the earliest painting in the show, 1999. So this begins the story of my survey show. We thought it was a good starting point to tell the story of how I became a painter and made these paintings. My painting shows a woman in the act of flying. Although she is wearing a red cape to top off her achievement, I have presented her as barely able to fly, more in a state of longing than accomplishment. Because she is seen as trying to do something for which she is unequipped, we catch her in a state of vulnerability and exposure. She doesn't have any clothes on, too. On the other hand, she is shown in a hero's mode and can perhaps be confused at first with a superhero. In this way, I hope to balance her striving with an upbeat pose, however improbable or unlikely. That was me. And I think at the time in my artist life, I felt as though I was barely being an artist. I was just getting off the ground. I was trying to be something that I wasn't. And I see now that I made a painting about that. Most of the paintings I was working on were this size, whereas this was life size. And I think that gave me the idea to do a complete figure. It's on a drop cloth because I didn't even have a piece of canvas big enough for that painting. The great thing about this painting is that I entered it in the Portland Biennial as a pretty unknown artist, and it was accepted in the biennial. It gave me such a boost and such joy to be part of a museum show and to see it hanging on the wall, where it still is, miraculously enough. That's my neighborhood museum, Portland, Maine. I started painting when I was living in Brunswick, Maine. I was part of the community in Maine, and I still am. And I come back every summer. It's played a big part in my life. After I did The Woman Flying, I wanted to do another one. Not just like it, but I thought, oh, I'll try this again, this idea. So I had the head, the arms spread out, a person in the air, buoyant. As I was painting it, there was so much blue all around that it just appeared like someone in the water, not in the air. The figure became a swimmer with her hand dipping in the water. And I really think that was the beginning of perceiving a person in paint, a person in blue water, getting that idea that I could use the blue air as blue water. Swimmers could be diving, floating, alone, together, and for this painting, I had them all holding hands. The painting wasn't meant to be about danger or being in a perilous situation. I just took the wave and painted some swimmers under it. I think I spent a lot of my youth in water, swimming. It's something I feel I know, especially visually. When I'm around a pool or a beach, I feel very at home. As a teenager, I was on a swimming team, and in college I was on a swimming team. I like the intensity of the races, and I feel the same way about the art world. It's a place where if you keep doing it every day, you'll get a little better. By the end of the summer, you're better than the beginning of the summer, and it's a very satisfying feeling, and I haven't forgotten that. The Superman paintings grew out of doing divers with the swimmers. I spent a few years having superheroes going through the air, and that's what interested me, was the same buoyant nature of a Superman. And you can probably tell I didn't know a lot about Superman. I made him not very muscular, rather vulnerable. I want them to be full of emotion, and how am I going to do that? I pretty much don't use facial expressions, but I do pay attention to body language and the relationships between two people, how they stand visually next to each other, how they touch each other, what they do with their legs and arms and heads and so on. I think it makes them vulnerable, and I think vulnerable is a very exciting place to be because it's open. And I think as a painter, I want to be vulnerable too. People look at my work and see where I painted over something and say, did you mean for us to see that, or did you want to erase it? I meant for the viewer to be aware that I changed it and that I made a mistake and that I struggled a little bit. So that's my vulnerability as the artist. I remember the summer day that I did that painting and how much I love those colors. In my search of how to make people out of paint, this painting really helped me because I put blocks of color and then made them into people. I made little round heads, torsos, arms, legs, and it really helped me to simplify the figure. I didn't have to pay attention to the anatomy and so on. I think if I sat and thought, oh, I'm going to do a woman with a lot of breasts and breast milk coming out of them, I think it would have been an entirely different painting. I think the fact that I saw it in front of my eyes and went with it, now that's intuitive, impulsive, and being in the moment when you paint, thinking, oh, this is happening here, this is, you know, it doesn't always work out. That was a good day when I made that painting. I don't use photographs. I don't use sketches. I dip my brush in the paint and I put it on the canvas and I begin. And I have the faith that something will come of that. I will keep looking at it and some idea will come to me of what's going to happen. Of course, I've been painting a long time, so I have a lot of vocabulary to reach into and use. At the time I did Striped People with Arms, I was more into stripes than arms. I really wasn't even trying to make a plausible figure. I wanted the beauty of stripes. It's really, again, chunks of color and color next to color, which is propelling this painting. It could be a family, the arm, the top arm is way too long, but I needed it to be long. So that was good. I was making decisions that weren't based on being correct. As far as the gender, I like a lot of fluidity. The characters in my paintings are often neither male nor female, or both. And I see us as an American society going in that direction. So I made this painting in 2020 when very much on our minds was a global pandemic. I felt as a communal plague that we'd all gone through together that I did want it to be part of my work. So this painting is of people sitting on a mother's lap, and there's a certain sense of caring for each other, of solace that you might need, of the tenderness that comes from the fact that we all had to look out for the other person. And we still do, by the way. I love being in my studio. It's calm, it's quiet, it's full of beauty and ideas, and I'm so happy being here. I'd be embarrassed to tell you how many hours I could spend being here if I didn't have to do other things.